And welcome everybody to Gabriel's Car Show. I'm doing a write-up here about my current rental car, something you've seen before, even though you don't pay mind to it because it looks like part of the scenery. It's Toyota's imitation of a Buick, the Avalon. Compare this against a Buick LaCrosse and you'll see the surprising similarity in style and also content. Look at these tires, Michelin primacy. You don't expect those on a Toyota. Certainly they never were on any Prius or Corolla I've ever driven. Now we step inside. Look at this cabin. You've got nice stitching on all the dash and door panels. You've got a grade of leather that is surprisingly high quality for Toyota. Certainly pleasant surprise for anybody trading up from a Corolla. Look at this infotainment system. Basically like an iPod, but a lot less intimidating. Perfectly suited for the older people and rental fleets that this vehicle is primarily targeted to. In fact, I bet dollars to donuts that the reason this vehicle came about was because Toyota had a secret meeting one day where they asked themselves, who's not buying Toyotas? Somebody raises their hand and they say, old people. And then the Toyota management says, well, what do old people buy? Somebody else raises their hand and says, they buy Buicks. So the senior management says, you find out why old people like Buicks, so we make our own Buick. It sounds funny, but if you substitute old people for guys from Texas and big pickup truck for Buick, that is basically exactly how Toyota came up with the current Tundra pickup. This is unusual. You've got a leather-wrapped cover hiding the USB and charger ports. Something you typically expect in a luxury vehicle priced $20,000 or more higher than what an Avalon goes for. You've got some pretty nifty steering wheel buttons. A little bit of getting used to if you're switching from a General Motors vehicle because your volume buttons are in the opposite side of what GM sets up as, but that's alright. Speaking of buttons, watch this. You don't even have to press the buttons. They respond to just a gentle finger touch. Perfect for the older folks who may occasionally be suffering from arthritis or something like that. Look how smoothly this volume knob turns. Again, gentle touch of a finger. You've got this nice imitation wood trim on the dash, blacked out to give it a very modernistic flair, something sort of like what you would see on a piano. You've got seat warmers. Don't need those much in Vegas, but if you're up north, they come in handy. Let's get her on the road and see how she drives. Remember, always buckle up for safety. Now, Toyota in particular, as well as the Japanese automakers in general, have always been trying to emulate the American automakers. Those of you who know your 50s and 60s history will know that from after World War II up until the early 70s, American automobiles were actually status symbols in Japan. Watch the old James Bond movie, You Only Live Twice. You'll see when you get to Japan, the nice neighborhood, you've got somebody driving a 59 Chevy, somebody driving a Mustang, and then when you got the scene where the hired goons from the chemical company are going after James Bond, what are they driving? A four-door Dodge Dart. This power steering is unbelievably smooth. Requires very little effort to turn the wheel. Your brake pedal is very predictable in its response. Ride quality is very smooth. Perfect for the older gentleman with lower back issues. Or for the livery car fleet seeking to provide a better quality ride for their passengers. These guys really did their best over here at Toyota to reduce some of the unpleasant driving noises as much as possible. It's surprisingly quiet in this cabin. To me, the golden standard of rental cars was always the Crown Vics, and compare this against the Crown Vic, yeah, you don't get the effortless torque of a V8, but they've made this car surprisingly responsive for a 6-cylinder front-wheel drive. You'll see that in a moment as soon as I can get on the freeway and open her up a little bit. As for interior accommodations, I'm 6 foot tall. I put the seat all the way back. Yeah, the seat's narrower than what you would find on a Crown Vic, but the legroom is still there. The headroom is fine. It's maybe a little bit less headroom than a Crown Vic, but I'm fine and dandy. And as a rental car, I must say, this is pretty much the best you can hope for in a rental car. The only rental cars I've seen in the large sedan class that I've had better driving experiences with would be the Dodge Charger and Chrysler 300. I got to rent the Hemi Charger once. Right away after I got that thing on a freeway, I could understand why people like buying Hemi Chargers. Going back to Toyota versus America, Toyota has been trying to emulate the American cars ever since the 60s. Did you know that the engine on the original Land Cruiser is actually a Chevrolet Stovebolt 6? Oh yeah. Toyota bought the rights and tooling to that motor, did some modifications to get it to work well with the Land Cruiser platform, and used it for over 20 years. If you've got a family full of fairly tall folks, this thing is very good for cruising. As I said, 6 foot tall me is driving this thing just fine. And the back seat is surprisingly roomy. I'm sure I would have no problem sitting back there for a cruising around nice and easy on one of these things. As I said, very little in the way of unpleasant noise and harshness. perfect for anybody desiring a smooth ride. As I said, the older folks, the delivery fleets, rental car companies looking for a luxury option. Right now I'm sitting in old traffic here on the freeway. Thankfully this thing is comfortable enough where you can grin and bear a little sitting in traffic here and there. As I mentioned before, this comes with some very good tires, the Michelin Primacy, and I find that they deliver a good compromise between spirited handling and wet and dry weather confidence with ride softness. They are an integral part of the overall driving experience that you get when you're in this car. They even wrap this steering wheel in a pretty good grade of leather. You grip it in your hand and there's no trouble at all. It's very good to hold on to. Haven't tested one of these things in 100 degrees weather. That's where leather starts to show its weakness. Leather retains heat like crazy. That's why I tend not to buy cars with leather interior myself. Once I get past the exit for the 95 freeway, I can really show you how well this thing responds. Watch this. That throttle response is extremely good considering that this is a front-wheel drive 6-cylinder. May not be the fastest thing on wheels, but she can definitely get herself out of harm's way or out of the hole if need be. Now, if you tend to be one of those who buys cars based on price, features, and driving experience, as opposed to being loyal to a specific brand, this is something that you might enjoy if you're looking for a large sedan with plenty of room for 6-foot tall folks and soft ride and handling attributes. See, I, like a lot of guys, we tend to buy cars based on brand loyalty. You talk to a Chevy truck guy, you're not gonna get him to suddenly consider buying a Ram, or you're not gonna suddenly convince the Mustang guy to buy a Challenger. But when you're dealing with older folks and women, they tend to buy cars based on combination of price and features, content. In other words, what gives the most value for the money in terms of what they are looking for. And in that kind of market, something like this does very well. Ford Motor Corporation, in fact, found out the hard way that they can't make a brand exclusively for women, because they tried that with Mercury with disastrous consequences. Here I go once again. I get a chance to show you how this thing responds when you want to open her up. She is right there. This is something you get on a freeway and you want to go, you can go. Well, anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video write-up. I'll be posting this up on my Facebook page later tonight. Leave me some feedback and let me know what you think, because I'm honestly hoping that at some point in the future I can make my own online show about cars. I believe I can enlighten folks on what cars are all about, what it's like to drive one, own one, from the point of view of just an ordinary working person in an ordinary working person's world. So let's face it, you got a lot of these car shows that are either written by the car magazines or by the guys who collect cars, and they tend to have the resources to get into anything versus you and I. We may never get to drive a Lamborghini or any of that stuff, but we still like our cars. So with that, I bid you all farewell and good day.